Okay, so let's start this today's lecture. Uh, in last class, what we have discussed was what we were discussing was like a maximum likelihood for least squares, and the formulation of the problem was this, that you can take a target variable which is nothing but added noise to some function, and that noise is having some assumption. So noise can have any distribution. So we have taken that noise is taken from a Gaussian distribution. If you want to rewrite this assumption in a single expression, you can rewrite this as a probabilistic model, where you say that the probability of a target variable t is nothing but you draw a value from a mean, which is nothing but a value on a some function, and then you take a variance, how much you are deviated from it, and you are drawing some value t from this distribution, right? Then we said that you could have like more than one data sample. For each sample, you can calculate a probability. So if you are having n samples, you are calculating n different probabilities and you're multiplying it, right? So this is known as a likelihood function, where w is not known. So you change your w, your probability will keep on changing, right? So this is known as a likelihood function, uh, right? That this is what we have discussed. Then we said that rather than maximizing likelihood, we can maximize log likelihood, which will not change the solution. And once you do the log of it, this is the simplified expression you get, right? And you find it out that this expression is also containing sum of square errors. Rather than maximizing, you can minimize this, and you will find it out that if you minimize the negative of log likelihood, you are actually minimizing the sum of square error, right? This is what we have discussed. But we have not discussed so far, like what is the solution of this w, because w can be infinite, right? So w can have a parametric space. Parametric space means w is a, for example, if I'm talking about a line, so w is a vector which is having intercept and slope. So on one axis I put intercept and other axis I put slope. So every point here is a line, right? So this is an intercept and this is a slope. This point is having this intercept w0 and this is a slope, right? So every point here is a line. So I don't know which w is actually maximizing my log likelihood function. The good thing is that this error function is quadratic, right? If this function is quadratic, I can have an analytical solution. So quadratic functions, you can just take a gradient and put it equals to 0. You will get directly a solution for it, because this error function is quadratic. Always remember, because we are getting analytical solution because it is quadratic, right? So now, because it is a very simple function, so we can take a derivative of it and put it equals to 0, right? So you are putting a gradient and putting it equals to 0. When you simplify it, you get this solution WML, right? So this is this W. So somewhere in this parametric space of intercept and slope, right, there are millions of points, infinite points, I would say. So this is a space, right? It is a R2 space, and there are infinite points in this, and every point is a line. So this W will give you some point which is having a maximum probability of seeing a data, right? So this is a direct one-shot solution, because the error function on this parametric space was a quadratic function. You have taken that derivative and put it equals to 0. So you get a value of this. So the value will be a two-dimension vector, this WML for this specific case. It is a two-dimension vector. And when you plot it, you just go to this W0 and you go to this W1, you will find it out that this is the solution, right? So this WML is nothing but a vector, and this vector is pointing to some point in a parametric space, right? That point is having a property that it will maximize the likelihood function, right? We had discussed,
So
yeah,
yeah, so like WML is we are writing that expression and it consists of an inverse, right?
right,
So it's not always necessary like inverse will be existing of that phi transpose phi.
right. So there are some simplified assumption that first phi transpose phi is like a symmetric matrix, right? So phi, you can just say that phi is invertible, and there are a lot of chances. it may be possible. You are quite correct in that sense. But for a simplified situation, phi is like a full rank matrix. Then phi transpose phi is also a symmetric full rank matrix, and its inverse is also available. The only time when phi transpose phi is not invertible is when you are taking some linearly dependent basis function, right? For example, if, to recall this thing on your this matrix here. So this is a phi matrix, right? So in this phi matrix, this is the first basis function you applied to every data point. This is a second basis function you applied to every data point, and this is a mth basis function applied to every data point. Why I'm saying every data point? This is the first point, this is the second point, and this is the nth point. Now, if you are using some basis functions which are linearly dependent, right? So let's say this second basis function and this mth basis functions are linearly dependent. Then your phi may not be invertible. But if you have chosen your basis functions such that every column is independent of each other, then phi is a full rank matrix. Then phi transpose phi will be a full rank matrix, and its inverse will exist, right? So generally, in the case of data, when we have a noise, we will get a situation where it is most of the time it is invertible, right? So we will have other solutions when they are not invertible, but for a simplified situation, it is working fine for us, as you see in your practice. Okay.
Sure.
Any other question? So now I got this solution of WML, right? So this WML is nothing but this is the line, or this is a point in a parametric space, and this point is nothing but a line which will give me the maximum probability for a data set, right? How to derive it, right? So in book, you have got this solution directly. Author has assumed your skills on calculus and linear algebra that you will derive it. But for the sake of my completeness, I have put this derivation on slide. So this is how you do it, right? So error function is nothing, but it is a sum of square error. And sum of square error is nothing but difference between target and difference between your function, what your line is giving, right? So this is a line what you're giving. If you write this expression in linear algebra form, it is W transpose phi. And just to avoid this sigma, you can rewrite it this way. So you just see your last lecture slide, that last lecture recording. I have explained it in detail there. So now you have rewritten your error function into this linear algebraic terms, and this is how you can write it, right? It is nothing but a sum of square error. When you take a derivative, right? So you are first expanding these brackets, right? So you take this transpose, apply to this first, and take this transpose, you apply to this term, and then you are multiplying it. So you just see this formula. If you are taking a transpose of A B whole transpose, it is B transpose A transpose, right? So that's why it is W transpose phi transpose when you apply it. So it is W transpose phi transpose. So it will come like this, W transpose phi transpose, right? So when you do all these calculations, you found out that with taking a derivative with respect to W, it will go away because this doesn't have any W in it. So it acts as a constant because we are taking a partial derivative. So this term is having W. So you will take by matrix calculus, you will get phi transpose T. You will get phi transpose T, right? And this W will go away because you're taking a derivative with respect to W. It is a quadratic term in W. So you will get phi transpose phi W, right? And because this is quadratic, it is like x square. So you will get 2x. So this 2 will come. So for now, you don't have to go in the detail of matrix calculus, but you take it from the slide that this is how you can take a derivative with respect to a vector, right? So now when you put this derivative with equal to put it equals to 0 and solve it for W, this is how you can get, this is first simplified statement, and then this second equation will give you that W is nothing but it is phi transpose phi whole inverse into phi transpose T, right? And if you want to check the matrix, what is the dimension of a W? It is nothing but phi transpose phi, the dimension of phi is nothing, but it is n by m, right? It is n by m. So phi transpose means m by n, right? It is m by n. So phi transpose phi is nothing but m by m, right? So if you take a inverse, it is m by m. So then you take phi transpose t. So phi transpose is nothing but m by n, right? It is m by n. And t is nothing but what is the dimension of t? Can anybody tell me?
M cross n cross n cross 1.
Very good. Very nice. So it is n by 1, right? So t is nothing but my target value in a data set. So if you have n samples, so first sample is x1 t1, right? x1 t1, second sample is x2 t2. So what you are doing, x1 t1 and x2 t2, and finally xn tn. So you have n samples, and we have assumed that my t is a univariate variable. So you are taking all t's and putting it into a vector form, right? So which is nothing but it is a block, this t. This is what it is written here. So the dimension is n by n. So if you see the final thing, what you will get is m by 1. M by 1 is what? You had a basis functions. How many basis functions you had? M basis functions. When you so why I'm saying m basis function? Because it started from 0 to m minus 1, and which is nothing but the dimension of a w vector. So it is a intercept and slope if it is 2-dimensional, right? So you will get this w. I hope everything is fine here. So in last slide, in last lecture, I have just been wrong for 1 minute while I was explaining phi. So it is like from 40.35 to 41.35. So I was like bit explained. Except I wanted to explain phi in terms of metrics, but I explained phi in terms of vector. So you just please check it. Though later I have corrected it in that slide on that recording itself. But here phi is a design matrix, right? I hope that is clear to you now. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? Yes or no, please.
So can phi be called a feature matrix, like features of
Phi
something like
itself is a feature matrix, right? So phi is nothing but it's the features of your input x, which you have which you have just mapped into higher dimension using basis function. So phi itself is a feature matrix.
okay.
Okay. Anybody else? Any question? You can write no if you don't have any questions. So I can get to know like you are actually attentive here. Okay. Fine. Okay, so this is like we have derived a expression for WML, and I want you to keep this in your head or on your tips of finger. So every time somebody asks you to derive it, you don't need to see the PPTs or a book, right? You just do this expression by heart. So now let's go to the other. So we have just read how to derive that maximum likelihood expression. Let's see the geometrically how, if you have some it's okay to the people which you don't understand right now, but intuitively how you can see it. The geometry of least square solution is like this. So you have a phi matrix, right? So phi matrix, each column. So I am saying that you just go to the column space of this phi matrix. So how you can construct a column space? Each vector in phi matrix is a, I mean to say column vector, right? Each column vector in this phi matrix will be a basis vector, right? If they are linearly independent. And we have assumed that phi is a linearly independent matrix. So these vectors will form the basis vectors, right? If they forms a basis vector, then the column space will somewhere look like this, S, right? So phi 1 is the first basis vector, phi 2 is the second basis vector, And let's say there are m basis vectors, so all linear combination of those m basis vector will give us the column space. So for simplicity, we have two basis vectors here, phi1 and phi2. So it will construct a column space which is nothing but a plane, right? What you want to do is you want to find out the value of a target variable t, which may not be in the column space of this phi matrix. Then you want to approximate the solution of t, which is nothing but our closest point in this column space of S. So I wanted to find out a solution of a t which may not fall into the column space of phi matrix. Then because I need to come up with some solution, so what I'm doing, I'm just projecting this t onto this column space of phi matrix, and this will give me y. So this y is a solution that I am having when I was trying to find out a solution for a t, right? So it means y will be in a column space. If you multiply your phi with WML, WML is what? That parameter which is giving you maximum probability. It means this phi will give you, this phi WML will give you a vector for every sample prediction, right? So for x1, it will give you y1. For y1, for x2, it will give you y2. And for xm, it will give you y. For xn, it will give you yn, right? And you remember phi is having a design matrix where each row is a sample, projected sample in m dimension space. And this is a vector w. So you are multiplying every row by vector. It is a dot product and it will give you y, right? Again, by this vector, it will give other y. So this y is nothing but it is in a column space of a phi matrix. And the solution which WML will give you, that y which is closest to t, right? This is why it is maximum likelihood solution, because the only orthogonal projection is the projection which can give you the minimum distance. So if you remember that your intention was to find out the function which is closest to t. So for y1, the error should be very less, right? So y1 minus t1 should be small, y2 minus t2 should be small, and likewise you just have every error to be very small. It means the sum of square error should be very small, and sum of square error is nothing but you can see it in a Euclidean space. It is a distance between y and t. So the distance between y and t should be very small, and the distance can be only minimized when you have an orthogonal projection. If it is not an orthogonal projection and you take y somewhere here, then the distance between y which you have come up, which comes because of some other w, may not be minimum. But when you take y because of WML, it is the minimum among all y's in the column space. Am I making sense to anybody? Can you say yes or no? Quickly type it. Right. So you need to see the orthogonal projection for it. And I'm happy that some of you may get this concept. You go through it and it is a very simple concept of linear algebra. You you listen all my recording again and again, and it makes sense to you. And if you can go to your basics of linear algebra for orthogonal projection. Fine. So I have just connected you to the geometry of least squares, and you just read through the book. You will really get insight of it further. So any question, or can I proceed? You can write no questions if you don't have any. Fine. Okay. Now I am coming to this regularized version, right? So this is a regularized version. So far we have done MLE, maximum likelihood estimation, but I told you that maximum likelihood estimation result into a overfitting. How to come up with the overfitting? We need to add some constant to it so that my Euclidean norm of W or L2 norm of W should be small. So I'm specific to L2 norm, but in general, you can go to any norm. I will bring that concept into a picture. So right now I'm trying to say that in my parametric space, you need to constrain yourself into some circle, right? That's why I'm saying circle in 2 dimension and hypersphere in higher dimension, that you cannot go beyond this boundary, right? You need to be inside this, and you need to minimize this error function. So this was your error function. Now you are putting your extra constraint that I can take a norm of my W, but it should not be greater than something, right? That something will be decided by lambda. You put your lambda equals to infinity, then what will happen? You are saying that you cannot have other than zero vector, right? It means you are constraining yourself in this parametric space to this point only. You are saying that you have a horizontal line on x-axis. That's it. We have discussed it in detail. Please go through those previous slides. So now if you rewrite this, it is an error, sum of square error, and you are putting some extra constraint to it, which says that your norm of W or L2 norm should not be large, right? If you find out a likelihood solution for this, which can maximize the probability, this is this solution, right? If you see carefully, only this term is extra from the maximum likelihood estimation. So let's derive it. Let's derive it. So I said that this is my EW, which is sum of square error, which we have just seen in maximum likelihood estimation. And this is my W transpose W. It is nothing but is the L2 norm of my parametric vector, which I don't want to be big. And that big will be decided by lambda, which is nothing but a hyperparameter. What I can do, I can take a derivative of this expression. And once I simplify it, I found out that this is what I get, right? I put this derivative, it equals to 0. And when I simplify for W, what I will get, this is what I get, right? And this expression is very similar to likelihood estimation. Only one additional terms come to here is that I am adding some terms to the diagonal of this phi transpose phi. So this act as a normalizer. So I don't know like how comfortable you feel in linear algebra. So some of you can ignore my statements if you don't, that doesn't make any sense to you. But phi transpose phi is nothing but it is a symmetric matrix. So if you do eigen decomposition on it, you will get something U lambda U transpose, right? So where U and UT are the orthogonal to each other. So if you take an inverse of it, of this matrix, U lambda U transpose, what you will get U lambda inverse U transpose. So this is the inverse of the matrix, which is nothing but phi transpose phi transpose, phi transpose phi whole inverse. But if you are adding something to the diagonal of this matrix, so you are adding these diagonal values to this eigenvalues. So
Sir,
if you
it will get reversed, right? U transpose inverse will come first.
no. Only
When we
the
inverse a product of two matrices, then
no, it is
AB
for
whole
symmetric
inverse.
matrix. They are
AB
orthogonal to.
whole inverse is equal to B inverse A inverse. B inverse A
You
inverse.
just listen to me by first. These are orthogonal to each other, right? They are like U and U transpose. You just derive it. That will make sense to you. So they are not any AB matrix, right? They are orthogonal to each other. U. I have written U transpose. So when you do it, so this is a lambda inverse. So when you do a lambda inverse, so if you have added some value here to this lambda, it means you are making some eigenvalues bigger, right? Because you are adding some values to that. So if it was 3 and you are adding 1 to it, it is becoming 4. So because you are adding diagonal values to this lambda, so you are stretching every eigenvalue to some extent. And this extension is because of this lambda. When you take an inverse, you are actually reciprocating it and you are just minimizing that thing. So it means you are saying not to stretch too much in that particular direction. And when you are saying not to stretch too much, it means you are just compressing it. And when you do compression, it means that you are minimizing the norm of W indirectly. So you can ignore it for now if you don't, it doesn't make any sense. But some of you who just have any insight of it, they can work on it, think over it, and we can discuss it offline, right? So this is a major difference, that we have diagonal value added to this matrix, right? Okay. Not only L2 regularizer, I can have a different regularizers. Like I can have regular one, which is given. So in general, I can have any value of q, right? If I having value q equals to 2, it will give me quadratic or L2 regularizer. If I take q equals to 1, I can take an absolute value and then add it to the error function. If I having q greater than 2, it is nothing but it give me this kind of constraint on parametric space. So you can see this as a constraint on a parametric space. And if a q is less than this 1, this is a kind of constant you will get. So it is easy to solve convex optimization problems. And every time we have non-convex problem, we can map it to a convex set. So these kind of problems are hard to solve, right? So even these kind of problems is not easy to solve, but we have a special benefit for this. It is known as sparsity. So what is sparsity means? If you have a dimension, if you have a parametric space, or it means the dimension of W is 100, let's say, when you do L2 regularizer, you will have some value for every W from W0 to W99. But when you do L1 regularizer, some of the value may reduce to 0. Right? So let's say W3 equals to 0, W5 equals to 0, and some of W's can have some significant value. So it means if, and the solution will be same. So you can have the same probability of producing the data set. But the good part of this sparsity is that you can ignore some basis functions, and when you need to predict it, you can just use only those basis functions which have a corresponding value in this parameter, right? So this is like a big discussion to do what is sparsity, and sometimes other universities run a whole semester course on it, sparsity in high dimensions, a kind of subjects. But it is good to know, and it is just introductory to you. So you just keep in your head there is something sparsity which you can achieve by L1 regularizer. And the moment we go proceed to this course, that clarity will come to you slowly, right? So how you see intuitively that when you do L2 regularizer, you can get this solution, right? And this solution will have this value also and this value also, right? So W1 and W2 will have some significant values, but when you do L1 regularizer, so this diamond will intersect to this your quadratic function. It is error function, quadratic function shown in blue. So it intersects somewhere on the axis, and here W1 value is 0 and W2 value is some significant value. So W star can be written as 0 for W1, and W2 is for some value like W2, which is nothing but shown in here, right? So it is having only one significant value corresponding to W2 axis, and corresponding to W1 axis it is 0, right? So this is known as sparsity, sparse solution. It is having a good advantage, as I said, like just to keep in your head, and the moment we more introduced to this concept, I will clarify you further. Okay, so there is a question, sir, in Q1, can we minimize it since we have mode W? Yeah, we can get a solution for this. And there is a way to start, because W is not differentiable, right? When you do L1 regularizer. So there is a question from Yashdeep that, sir, in Q, if Q equals to 1, can we minimize it since we have mode W? So we can minimize it, but we need some like some quadratics technique, some linear programming techniques used by defining simplex, or we can just break our expression into two sub expressions, like when W is less than 0 and when W is greater than 0, and then solve for it. So I will try to come up with that solution for you, maybe sometime other than this regular classes, and we will discuss in somewhere in tutorial sessions. But yeah, we can solve it, and it is really a very it is really a point of attraction to a lot of researchers in a community, which helps us to do some and there are so many fields associated to it, like compress sensing, sparsity, high dimensional sparsity, optimization for sparse solutions. And there is as I said, good universities are doing a lot of research in this field, and it is a topic of research. Okay, so Regularization allows complex model to be trained on dataset of limited size without severe overfitting, essentially by limiting the effective model complexity. I expect each of you to understand this line as I have explained it using a discrete examples in my first few lectures. You remember that when I told you, shown you a table of W and said that W is having a higher norm, and if you take if you put a regularizer, you are constraining your W into some circle, and as you increasing your lambda, you are decreasing the complexity of a model. It means you are going from m equals to 9 in polynomial quadratic problem, curve fitting problem. You are going from m equals to 9 to m equals to 1. Can you quickly write yes or no to recall that thing that I have discussed in detail in my first few lectures? Yes, yes, cool, very good. So all of you can just point to those lectures to understand this line. If you understand this line, really it helps you a lot to crack good interviews in your company, for a company like Amazon, Microsoft Research, and Google, right? Okay. Now the really catchy point comes, which really attracts to me, and I really find out very attractive in machine learning, and it is nothing but it's a simple application of a Bayes theorem, right? So this is the time we will be seeing how to do a regularized version of my curve fitting problem or linear regression using Bayesian, right? So it is kind of a probability come into a picture with prior, as we have discussed and did some solutions for coin tossing example, right? So this is now I am doing the same. I'm using the same methodology which I have used already on coin toss problem, where I have discussed MLE versus map. Now I'm doing the same thing on my linear regression, right? So let's go through one by one. I want you to get an active role here in like discussion, so that you can give me a confidence that what I'm going to tell you is making a sense to you. So this is a parametric space, right? I am specifically talking about line here. So if this is a parametric space, though I have repeated 100 of times, can anybody tell me what this parametric space means to you? W0, W1, W0 on the horizontal axis, W1 is on vertical axis. And this is a parametric space for a line. So what do you understand it from it? Anybody? What does this, how you see this parametric space? Each point is a line, right? So Akash has said that each point is a line. So how many lines you can see here in this parametric space? Infinite, very good. So you can see infinite lines on the parametrics. Which line to choose is a topic of interest. Which line to choose when you don't have any data? Which line to choose when you have any data? So now, the moment this question comes to you, that which line to choose when you haven't any data, it means you should have some prior information. And the moment I say you should have a prior information in this selection, it means I have to define some distribution over this parametric space. So let's say I define some Gaussian distribution, bivariate Gaussian distribution, such that it is whose level curves are like this, right? So here it means the covariance matrix of this Gaussian is identity matrix, and it is nothing but it is a concentric circles. But if my matrix is not identity, covariance matrix is not identity, then I can have an ellipsoid level curves, right? This is how. So this covariance matrix is not corresponding to a identity matrix, right? So right now, because I was not having any idea what to choose, which line to choose, I just said that, okay, I can define a prior on my parametric space, and that prior having some distribution, and that distribution says that you can choose as per you can choose this line as per this distribution, which is nothing but a multivariate Gaussian, and it is an isotropic Gaussian. It means that all things, your covariance matrix is identity. Okay, is this clear to you? Yes or no, quickly, so that I can proceed to the next concept. So now I have a, yes, fine, very good. So I have a distribution over my parametric space, and this distribution is nothing but it helps me to choose a line. So can anybody tell me which is the most likely line I can choose from this distribution? You can unmute yourself and can tell me which is the most likely line I can choose from this distribution.
Y equal to x or y equal to minus x.
Sorry, y equals to x.
Or y equal to minus x.
No. You can tell me the line, right? And you can draw that line here. So I have, because it is a biometric, it's a bivariate Gaussian. So it means I have two parameters, intercept and slope. So I can draw this line. So which is that line? Which is that line? Anybody can tell me which is that line?
Y equals to 0.
Y equals to 0, right? Very nice. So the most likely line. So S Kalyan, can you unmute yourself? S Kalyan.
Okay.
Can you please mute your video so that it can help us to not to distract too much from your video as you are roaming on the ceiling. Can you mute your video? Yeah. Please don't make us to see your sight scenes there, right? Be careful. So the line which I can have from here is the most likely point is this, which is sitting at 0, 0, right? It means my intercept is 0 and my slope is also 0. If my intercept is 0 and slope is 0, which is the line that I'm going to get? Come on, tell me quickly. If my intercept is 0, my slope is 0, which is the line that I'm going to get? Gorepati? Y equals to 0, right? Yeah. So it means it is just going over this x-axis. This is that line. So most likely line from the distribution that I'm going to pick is this line, which is just kissing the x-axis.
So can't it be x equal to 0 too?
Can you write it so that it will help me to see this, Yashdeep? What is the equation of line?
Sir, x is equal to 0, he said.
X equals to 0. No, I am drawing a point from the parametric space, right? So I am drawing a point, and this point is defined in some sense from x-axis. This is an intercept. This is an intercept from y-axis, that is W1. It is a slope, right? So if you take a most likely point, which is defined by the distribution, is nothing but at the origin. So it means the vector will be 0, 0. So it means if my intercept is 0, which is corresponding to W0, and my slope is also 0, which corresponds to W1, I think that there will be no confusion in this. There should be no confusion in this.
So like that Gaussian curve is in 3 dimension, right? Like I have points in 2D, x and y, and that
Right.
curve is in 3D, right? So the maximum point is at origin, no? So can't it be like y equal to 0 or x equal to 0? Like both lines.
Hey, just hold on. You don't confuse your parametric space with your functional space. So you are in a parametric space where your W0 and W1 define an intercept and a slope. And this three-dimensional thing, what you are saying, it will, the z-axis here is saying the density of that point. What is the probability of picking that point? So 0, 0 is nothing but the highest probability of picking 0, 0.
Yes, sir.
Right? So don't confuse your parametric space with the functional space. So what I am drawing here It is my functional space. So I picked a point from this point, this space, which is a parametric space, which is nothing but 0, 0. So when I consider this 0, 0 as a point, I want to draw a line. So I have to come to a functional space. So I draw a line where this is my x and this is my t, right? So I draw a line. So this is my functional space and this is my parametric space. So there are two different spaces here that I am discussing. So I am picking a point from a parametric space, which is defining a function in a functional space. Is this clear to you?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So don't get confused by these two different spaces. Okay, so if you get a so I hope that you are understanding this point here. What is this posterior? This is prior. The figure that's shown you here is this one. So this is this one, which I'm discussing you. So you started with some prior on your parametric space, right? So it means the most likely point is this point, 0, 0, which is saying a line is horizontal. Now you see your first data point somewhere here. You see your first data point, right? So somebody comes to you and say that, now, okay, at first I didn't have any data set, but now I am seeing my data points one by one. So this is the first data point in your functional space. So this point will define some probability over your parametric space. So it will change your belief. And what is the change in belief is this. All those lines which can go very near to this point is having a more probability in respect to this line, which I'm drawing now, right? Let's say this is this line, okay? This is this blue line, right? So this blue line is having a less probability in comparison to all these lines which are drawn here, because this blue line is very far from the point given to it, right? So it means you can change your prior after seeing your data set or data sample 1, because this data sample 1 define a probability in a sense that those lines which are going away from the point will have a less probability. So you can change your belief now because you have seen one data set. Is this sentence making a sense to you guys? Yes or no? Fine. Very good. So the moment you start seeing a first point, this belief which you had that I have this prior on my parametric space will going to change, because it said that all lines are going very near to the x-axis in the functional space. But the moment you say that there is a point which is actually here, so it means your belief which you had that all lines were going very near to the x-axis is not right. You have to change the belief. That change in belief is actually a posterior belief. So you started with some prior belief, but after seeing a data, you have updated your knowledge, because that data is hinting you that the prior that you had may be changed, because this is a new data that you are in at your hand, right? The moment you see a second point, these are the lines which can having a higher probability, not even this line, because this point is far from this line. So now you just summarize yourself after seeing only two lines. Your prior will be shrink to this density and say that only those lines which are picking it from this small region are more probable, right? So I will continue this discussion tomorrow from here onwards, because I am left with no time. So you just think over it, you just read this section, and I will start it. Before finishing, I just want to take one question, which just I think somebody has asked in between and I could not attend it. Yogendra Singh has asked, then why we optimize weight, we can overfit model and regularize it. Right. So he say, I don't know. Can you repeat your question? Can you make your more sense to it, Yogendra?
Sir, like in previous, there was a note you told that about regularizing.
Yeah.
So sir, why we means optimize by choose selecting W1 specific W1 to reduce error. We can always overfit model, and then we can regularize it.
Right. This is what we just I have explained you in the second slide, right? So after MLE, I have just go to that map estimation. So in map estimation, I said you that you can always regularize it, right? So in that regularization, we have found out that despite if you are not using regularization, you are overfitting. But when you do a regularizer, you can get it. You can get a good model. But here there is a catch. The only good model you can get is when you have a good value of lambda. If lambda is not chosen like as per a good experience, then you may not get a good model from it, right? So if you take a lambda equals infinity, then you shrink to a line which is kissing x-axis, right? So lambda is the another problem that arises the moment you bring this regularization into a picture. So your problem, this regularization will not end your problem, but instead it will add one more hyperparameter to it, where you need to select what is the value of what is the right value of a lambda, right?
So sir,
So
instead of selecting all means weights and bias, we can optimize lambda.
right, but lambda will help you to choose what only intercept and slope, right? Among the all the possible functions, it help you to choose the best function in a given constraint, right? So it doesn't like help you to relieve from all those problems which you had before. No, it is just giving us some constraint optimization problem now. You think over it, you just make more sense to your questions, and then we can discuss in the beginning of the next class, right? Is that fine, Yugandhar?
Okay.
Fine. You think over it and we will discuss in the next class. Okay. Thanks a lot.